Inhale, exhale, remember. Uncovering the breath memory connection. Inhale, exhale, remember. Uncovering the breath memory connection. You're listening to Technical News Reading, presented by Hakeem Alibokas Alexander on Spreaker, Social Podcasting, and Wisdom, Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with Uniquilibrium. This edition's reading focus comes to us from neurosciencenews.com and is titled Inhale, Exhale, Remember, Uncovering the Breath Memory Connection. It was published today, the time of this reading, at May 28th, 2023, under the category of Neuroscience. There is a caption here overlaid on an image by Neuroscience News. It actually looks like a woman exhaling a huge cloud of smoke. And the caption reads, "Our breath influences our neural activity, which in turn impacts our cognitive functions, including attention, memory recall, and emotional processing." The photo credit is to Neuroscience News. Summary. Hello, Migdalia, Jason Matthews, Sandy Decker, and New Life Poetry. Hello, welcome. Summary. Intricate links between breathing and memory recall have been unraveled by recent scientific research, painting a more complex picture of our cognitive processes. Studies reveal that the rhythm of our breathing can influence neural activity, impacting cognitive functions such as emotional processing and memory recall. The most compelling evidence highlights that inhalation, particularly through the nose, can improve memory function. As this field of study emerges, these insights could lead to novel therapeutic approaches for cognitive decline and memory-related conditions. Key facts. The rhythm of our breathing creates electrical activity in the brain, enhancing emotional judgment and memory recall, with this effect being most pronounced during inhalation through the nose. The amygdala and hippocampus brain areas linked to the amygdala and hippocampus brain areas linked to emotional and memory, or linked to emotion and memory, are significantly affected by the rhythm of breathing, suggesting that the act of breathing can modulate the functions of these regions. 3. Deep, controlled breathing, often used in mindfulness practices, can improve working memory capacity, the kind of memory we use to hold and manipulate information over short periods. Source: Neuroscience News. Breathing. It's an automatic process we often don't give a second thought. Yet recent scientific discoveries have begun to shed light on a fascinating relationship between breathing and memory function. Our breath influences our neural activity, which in turn impacts our cognitive functions, including attention, memory recall, and emotional processing. The rhythm of our breathing creates electrical activity in the brain that contributes to the enhancement of emotional judgments and memory recall. In fact, a study led by Christina Zolano at Northwestern University demonstrated that the act of breathing specifically through the nose can have a direct impact on cognitive functions such as memory recall. Here we have a video that's from YouTube on Neuroscience News. If you go to neurosciencenews.com and find this article, you can look at that video, which I haven't seen yet. The video is credited, of course, to Neuroscience News. Neuroscience News continues. Zolano's research team carried out a series of experiments involving human subjects and found that memory recall was significantly better during inhalation compared to exhalation. This effect was most pronounced when the subjects were breathing through their noses. The study showed that the rhythm of breathing can induce changes in the brain, enhancing the emotional judgment and improving memory recall. Furthermore, the amygdala and the hippocampus, two brain regions linked to emotion, memory function, and smell, are significantly affected by the breathing rhythm. These areas of the brain are part of the limbic system, which controls emotions and memory. It's thought that the act of breathing may modulate the functions of these brain regions, thereby influencing memory and emotional processing. Moreover, the act of controlled, deep breathing, often utilized in mindfulness and meditation practices, has been shown to enhance memory recall. A study published in the Journal of Sport and Exercise Psychology showed that mindfulness-based attention, which involves focusing on one's breathing, increases the ability to maintain visuospatial information over short periods. This suggests that deep, controlled breathing can improve working memory capacity, the kind of memory we use to hold and manipulate information in our minds over short periods. While the relationship between breathing and memory remains an emerging field, these findings suggest exciting possibilities for future research and potential therapeutic applications. Understanding the impact of breathing on memory could have implications for interventions related to cognitive decline, stress, anxiety, and conditions such as ADHD and Alzheimer's disease. In conclusion, it seems that the simple act of breathing, often taken for granted, can play a significant role in our cognitive functions, specifically memory recall. So next time you're struggling to remember something, take a moment, take a deep breath, and see if it helps. It appears our breath holds more power over our brains than we might think. About this neuroscience and memory research news. Author Neuroscience News Communications. The source, of course, is Neuroscience News. Citations. Nasal respiration entrains human limbic oscillations and modulates cognitive function by Christina Zolano and others, Journal of Neuroscience. Mindfulness, movement control, and attentional focus strategies. Effects of mindfulness on a postural balance task by Key and others, Journal of Sport and Exercise Psychology. Respiration modulates olfactory memory consolidation in humans by Artin Arshamian, Behzad Irvani, Asifa Majid, and Johan N. Lundstrom in Journal of Neuroscience. You've been listening to Technical News Reading presented by Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander here on Spreaker and Wisdom. Spreaker, Social Podcasting, Wisdom, Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with Uniquilibrium. So let's take a look here. It's pretty simple that breathing through the nose is something that you can do to improve your memory. And it's related to studies on mindfulness meditation and the other practices of meditation that require you to focus on your breathing as part of the process. So we find that it's also what they said that, but didn't focus too much on. They touched on that the rhythm of our breathing can influence neural activity and it can impact cognitive functions such as emotional processing. So we have um, breathing through the nose, the rhythm of the breathing, and how it can affect emotional processing and memory, specifically working memory. All right. Let's see. Now it's talks about that the amygdala and hippocampus are brain areas related to emotion and memory. They're significantly affected by the rhythm of breathing, suggesting the act of breathing can modulate the functions of these breathings. Deep, controlled breathing, often used in mindfulness practices, can improve working memory capacity, the kind of memory we need to use and hold, to hold and manipulate information over short periods. All right, and this is part of the limbic system. So we have breathing through the nose, rhythmically controlled breathing through the nose, can affect emotional processing and memory recall, and that these are linked to the amygdala and hippocampus, which are part of the limbic system. All of these related to memory, emotions, and also the sense of smell, of course, coming through our nose. So those are the key points right there. Just on the surface, if you just wanted to put that into practice right away, just be mindful of breathing through your nose more often. I find that sometimes when I'm reading, for example, I tend to, even just now I did it as I'm speaking more, or breathing through my mouth, but instead it suggests that breathing through the nose particularly can affect the limbic system, the amygdala and hippocampus, so that we can improve our memory recall. And that the rhythm of breathing affects the electrical activity in the neural circuits. Now this, it says that the rhythm of our breathing creates electrical activity in the brain. So the rhythm, I don't know how many of you know, but there are several breathing meditation practices in which the rate, the pace, the tempo, the rhythm of the breathing is changed in various different ways in order to enhance or to tap into certain emotional states. So now I don't know where I had learned this before, but there's something that I very often do if I'm not able to recall a subject, and it's take a deep breath in. Sometimes, and I don't know where I learned this from once again, I hold down one nostril and breathe through one side, and then exhale through my mouth. Then sometimes I hold the other nostril closed and breathe in, and then breathe out through my mouth. And I found, I used to think that maybe it was some sort of what they call a um, a placebo response. Most people call it a placebo effect, but it's a placebo. I like the term that I learned in the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, which is a placebo response. But apparently, here we now have some more neuroscience news talking about research done that shows that in fact, breathing through the nose can enhance our ability to process emotions and to increase or enhance our memory recall. And there was some previous research that was done on some monks in the Himalaya mountains, which talked about meditation. So I'm glad to see this. I was talking to Christopher Birkenbein a few times before, and I told him about how I learned that at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, at their Neuropsychiatric Institute, that's their psychiatric hospital and research center, that they actually started a mindfulness program to as part of their mental health program, which, it sounds good on the surface. I'm glad that they do it, but it's one of the most terrible places on earth to go for psychiatric treatment, as far as I know from the last time I was there. I wasn't there as a patient, but someone that I cared for very deeply was there many years ago, and it's uh, it's lacking a lot of things. That's all I'll say about that for now. But the key takeaway here is um, that you can One, they didn't give any specific examples, but one, you can focus on breathing more through your nose, specifically the inhalation process, which is part of a lot of the mindfulness practices. And two, you can practice different rhythms. Sometimes you'll hear them breathing in slowly, and then and you've probably even seen it popularized, like when women do Lamaze classes, the Lamaze breathing techniques. But there's also rhythm is closely related to tempo. Tempo is the speed, but you can actually practice create certain rhythms by working with tempo. So, for example, in the fitness industry, specifically, if you learned to personal training from the books of the National Academy of Sports Medicine, as I did, to get a personal trainer certification, they talk about tempo in the different ways that you move the weights around. So you have concentric, isometric, and eccentric movements. The concentric is when you, for example, if you bend your arm to do a bicep curl, the isometric is when you hold it in place, and the eccentric is the deceleration when you're releasing it. And so there are different tempos that you can do that create rhythms. So rhythm is made out of is within tempo. And so for example, you can do a tempo of 1 second of a contraction where you bend your arm one, hold it one, and then release for one. So it'll be one, two, three, one, two, three, one, two, three. That would be really a more quick tempo that can create a rhythm. But you can also change that up a little bit. For example, you can curl for one, hold for one, and release for two. So it would be one, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. One, two, three, four. And you have a rhythm. And the same thing you can apply to your breathing. You can breathe in, one, two, breathe out, one, two, breathe in, one, two, breathe out, one, two. So you can create different tempos and you can mix them up and see how it works. Sometimes you can hold for one. So you can breathe in one, hold one, breathe out two. And so there are different ways that you can practice the breathing and see which one works for you. It's probably best to practice them while you're sitting down or lying down because some people who are new to breathing practices, sometimes you can actually cause yourself to be a little bit dizzy. But I'm glad for seeing something like this every once in a while because it also gives me reminders of the things that I learned from teaching and practicing yoga for, wow, since 2004, almost 20 years now, and also from various different practices, being a trainer, practicing martial arts for 30 years, and so on. So all of these things are related, and it's fascinating how, for a long time, of course, we have in many traditions across the world that show the benefits of breathing. Back in the Vedic traditions from the Hindus, we have so many different breathing practices that are known of and that are shared. And even the fact that they have, they specifically use in the spiritual practices the name simply for breath in these practices. For example, in yoga and in the Hindu tradition, it's called prana, right? And so there's a yoga called pranayama yoga, which is actually what I specialize in. Some people have thought that I practice Kundalini yoga, which is more of a mystical kind of yoga, which talks about the Kundalini rising and all these things like that. And it very well may be that the way I was teaching and what I was teaching could probably enhance that because of how much I focus specifically on breathing during the practice. As a matter of fact, that's why I call my practice pranayama yoga because even though I teach postures and movement, my focus is not on that. My focus is basically getting a person into a posture that they can stabilize, they feel comfortable in, and is not dangerous for them, but focusing on the breathing. I usually have everyone hold a pose from anywhere between 3 and 5 breaths, and um, and that's the practice. So I'll have them go into a downward dog and hold 3 to 5 breaths. Have them in a lunge, 3 to 5 breaths, so on and so forth, and repeat on each side and do that. And so this is the probably one of the good reasons why I've been able to maintain a high level of flexibility, cognitive function, memory, and so many different things because I'm consistently practicing breathing practices. There, and it helps me to even notice things like sitting here, well, how I notice that I breathe in mostly through my mouth while I'm speaking instead of through my nose. But I wonder if that's a matter of habit, and if it's something that I mean, I know I can change it if I want to, or if it's just because it's actually more efficient for the body to do that while I'm speaking. Yeah, I think it seems like it might be more efficient right now, but I wonder if that's simply because I've just been breathing through my mouth, inhaling through my mouth as I speak for so long. So we'll see. But then let's take a look at the different ways that this can be practiced. There, I know that do a lot of breathing practice when I'm doing physical exercises and and also through meditation. Also, in a lot of situations, it's something they addressed emotional processing, and there have been several times when people have become threatening and confrontational, and instead of me doing anything at all, I usually just stand still and look at them and just start to breathe very deeply and don't move at all. Just let them talk and threaten and do whatever. And on three different occasions in my life, one recently within the last month, the people just kept on talking and threatening and then eventually actually ran away from me without me doing a single thing. So I find that fascinating. It's very interesting that I didn't do anything at all except stand there, look at them, and just breathe deeply, calmly, relaxing my posture and everything like that. And one of the reasons why I do it is because I don't like some of the effects that adrenaline has on my body where my one of my legs would start thumping or shaking and my body gets these incredible jitters throughout it, which is part of um, the sympathetic nervous system gearing up for a fight, right? That's the part of the fight or flight system. So these are the some of the points and interesting thing that I actually have some very significant points of practice to demonstrate this. And one of the practices that's most simple and easy to maintain for anybody to improve their health, specifically, as this article points out, when it comes to emotional processing, which of course our emotions are involved in trauma and different things like that. When it comes to memory recall, and I'm not surprised that the same system of the hippocampus and the amygdala that are part of the limbic system are related to have both connections to emotional processing and memory recall. Because a lot of times when we have significantly traumatic or other memories of any kind, right, whether they be pleasant memories or not of someone that you love or that you care about, how you can start to smile by thinking of them, or how sometimes we get a sign of someone that we miss dearly because we're grieving from them and we find something like that and it helps to trigger a cascade of emotions and feelings of grief and sadness and melancholy and despair. So it's very interesting that and important to recognize that fact and maybe hopefully it'll inspire people to breathe more. I remember one of my colleagues um, when she was teaching a program called NIA, which is NIA, which stood for Now I Am. And I was in one of her classes, and we were sitting, don't know what position it was in, but she then asked everyone in the class if to raise their hand if they felt tingling in their toes or in their feet and their legs. And I'm pretty sure that everyone raised a hand in the class except me because she came over to me and she says, "You're not feeling any tingling or anything like that in your feet or legs?" And I said, "No." She said, "Are you sure?" I said, "No." Then she looked at me for a second. She said, "You must be a deep breather." And I said, just shook my head, just nodded. Yeah, that's something that I do. It's been something that's been very helpful to me for a very long time. You see, when something reminds me of it, I'm like so inspired that I've been on the right course with that for a long time that I'm taking extra special care to take the time to breathe even more deeply right now as I speak here. Hopefully that the sound is not disturbing. Hopefully, it's actually a reminder to everyone as well. But another one of my now a client of mine, when I was training her at home, she noted about how much. He sees me breathing very deeply. And some people have mistaken it for frustration, my frustration itself, when actually, sometimes when something frustrates me, I go to deep breathing, but my breathing is not the frustration itself, it's the remedy to the frustration or being annoyed or anything like that. And so that would be something interesting to note as well, that I noticed that I have to very specifically make a very pronounced gesture that I'm breathing, like by lifting my shoulders and doing like a movement with my hands or whatever, to show that it's a deliberate breathing and not just some automatic reaction to something that they're saying or doing. And so sometimes that's really important to show that and make that distinction, because I do find that often I have, and sometimes other people must actually um, take deep breaths in or sigh, like you kind of get frustrated with something, you go, right? But it's a very automatic reaction rather than a deliberate and aware response. And so I think that we can hijack that system for our emotional uh, well-being, as the article and the research suggests. So that's all my commentary for here on Neuroscience News. And you've been listening to Technical News Reading presented by Hakeem Alibokas Alexander with commentary here on Spreaker Social Podcasting and Wisdom Social Audio Inc., presented for World Reading Club in association with Uniquilibrium. This edition's reading focus has come from neurosciencenews.com and is titled Inhale, Exhale, Remember, Uncovering the Breath Memory Connection. It was published today, the time of this reading, May 28th, 2003, under the category of neuroscience. You can read this article and others like it for yourself by visiting neurosciencenews.com. That's neurosciencenews.com. Neurosciencenews.com. Inhale, exhale, remember, uncovering the breath memory connection. Neuroscience News also asks that you join our newsletter. Sign up to receive our recent neuroscience headlines and summaries sent to your email once a day, totally free. We hate spam and only use your email to contact you about newsletters. You can cancel your subscription anytime. Neuroscience News posts science research news from labs, universities, hospitals, and news departments around the world. Science articles cover neuroscience, psychology, AI, robotics, neurology, brain cancer, mental health, machine learning, autism, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, brain research, depression, and other sciences.